Good morning. Now, the book of Daniel is hotly disputed. It's considered to be history written as prophecy and written about the year 200 BC. Now, parts of Daniel appear in the Dead Sea Scrolls dating back to 125 BC, so it had to have been written before then. Now, admittedly, Daniel is not written in chronological order. Chapter 5, for example, talks about the last year of Belshazzar's reign. Chapter 7 talks about his first year. Now, if we remember that these accounts of Daniel would have been written on scrolls at different times, and then somebody would have compiled these scrolls into one volume as the accounts of Daniel. Now, chapters 1 to 6 are dealing with Daniel in the third person. That's the history of Daniel. Daniel did this, that, and the other. Chapters 7 to 12 are personal writings of Daniel. I, Daniel, saw this, etc. Sorry about my voice this morning, it's not very good. Now, if you're a fraudster, how would you know when the Messiah was going to come? So we come to Daniel chapter 9 about these 70 weeks of years. Now, the Jews were familiar with a day for a year principle. So a week to them in prophecy would be 7 years in fulfillment. So 70 weeks Daniel talks about. At the end of 69 weeks, Messiah would appear, and he appeared on time. And I don't want to go into that too much, but I want to look at the last week of years. That's 7 years. Jesus appeared at the beginning of them. At the half of the week, this is Daniel 9:27, at the half of the week, he will put a stop to sacrifice and oblation. Now, you can only understand this if you understand the whole of the Bible. The Mosaic law, all of it, was written to explain why we needed the Messiah, that we needed a sacrifice. So when Jesus came and became the ultimate sacrifice, and he did that at the half of this 7 years, he preached for 3.5 years, and then he died. He put an end to the need for Mosaic sacrifices. The curtain in the temple was rent from top to bottom, ending the Mosaic law's need, although we still need it to understand Jesus Christ. So Jesus came at the half of the week to fulfill the law of Moses. How did a fraudster know that? Well, obviously he didn't, did he? It had to have come straight from Daniel as a prophecy from God. Now, I want to put yourselves in the mind of a fraudster, and then we'll look at Daniel 9 and verse 5. Now, this is a prayer, and a very heartfelt prayer by Daniel, and he said, we have sinned, we have done wrong, acted wickedly, we have betrayed your commandments and your ordinances. He was heartbroken. Now, a fraudster is not going to include this prayer where Daniel is asking for help not to commit sins. A fraudster is about to commit a sin. He would have left this prayer out. He would also have left out any mention of Darius the Mede. The reason being, there was no mention of the Medes in history. And if you're writing a history book 300 years later, you'd know very little about the Medes. It's barely mentioned in the book of Esther. But Daniel knew about this person and so wrote about him. The Medes were a nomadic group of people, and eventually they banded together and joined forces with the Persians. And if we look at the end of chapter 5, where Belshazzar dies, and we see what chapter 6 says, Darius the Mede received the kingdom. Now, it's apparent he received the kingdom from Cyrus. Now, Cyrus was very busy at this time. He needed somebody to govern Babylon. He also needed to keep the Medes happy, so Darius was appointed. Now, there were Persian kings called Darius, so it might have been a title. Now, this particular king only reigned for 2 years, and in history, That's a blink, less than a blink of an eye. So it's unlikely he's going to appear in history. Not only that, the Medes didn't write down any of their history, being nomads. So we have now conclusive, well, we don't have anything conclusive. We need faith, of course, to believe in the book of Daniel, but there are many pointers that it's true. It's not history, because many of the prophecies are still to be fulfilled. The kingdom that was cut out, as we told in chapter 2, it was cut out of a rock, it knocked down all the world empires and filled the earth. That hasn't happened yet. Much of Daniel is yet to be fulfilled, and we can be so grateful that it will be, because everything Daniel said so far has come true. Now, I have a picture here. I don't know if it'll show up on the camera. It's Rembrandt's rendering of the storm on the Sea of Galilee. If Jesus can quell a storm, God can write a book of prophecy without any trouble and make it accurate. So we can have full reliance on the book of Daniel. And there are some videos online. Watchtower's got one as well, although they've added a backstory to it. But see what you think. It's on jw.org. It's okay. Thank you so much for watching.